Ladies and gentlemen, hello to each and every one of you. Once again, you are welcome here on the Awakening of Consciousness Tribune. So, this is the headline of international news. Since yesterday, March 1st, 2025, the French President Emmanuel Macron, he is determined. He is unleashed. Yes. He announces a very, very strong response against the United States of America, against Donald Trump, against Vladimir Putin, if we can put it that way. Emmanuel Macron is positioning himself to truly carry the voice of Europe. Yes, he wants to carry the voice of Europe. So, we recently saw Emmanuel Macron in the United States of America. That semblance of a joke he had with President Donald Trump, that semblance of agreement. We understand through this announcement he just made that it was a semblance, really just a semblance, even if we already knew it, but now it's confirmed. Emmanuel Macron breaks his silence, drops the mask, and tells Donald Trump the hard truths. And to anyone who wants to hear it, and to be honest, we have Emmanuel Macron who is not happy about the altercation that took place in the Oval Office. This altercation, he is not happy about it. And the words that were spoken by Donald Trump, he responds to those words. He does not agree with those words. So, Emmanuel Macron is preparing France and all of Europe to stand up, to defend Europe. And it is now that he awakens. Ladies and gentlemen, in the context of this video conference, this is what we are going to talk about. But before continuing, as usual, I ask you to give a lot of likes, to give a lot of thumbs up, to share the video conference in all possible groups. Share it as much as possible. Yes, because it is by sharing that this video will gain enough visibility. That's what it's about, and it's encouraging. You know it. So, here is her first statement. She says this: if Putin is not stopped, he will not stop himself. Let me repeat. Macron says this: if Putin is not stopped, he will not stop himself. So this means that Putin must be stopped. But how should Putin be stopped? Let's continue. He says that Putin will not stop himself. Moldova could be next. That is on Russia's list. After Ukraine, when Putin finishes devouring Ukraine, consuming Ukraine at his leisure, it will be Moldova. After Moldova, it will be another European country until Russia swallows up all the European countries. Most European countries are very small. They are small countries. And today, Russia has great support from America, make no mistake, from Donald Trump. It even seems like Russia is dictating the laws to Donald Trump. It seems like Putin is dictating the laws to Donald Trump. It must be said, it must be reiterated, it must be specified. So, he continues, Emmanuel Macron. According to him, Russia is an overarmed state. That is to say, the limit number that a normal army should have, Russia has gone beyond. Russia is beyond that. And in terms of military equipment and weapons, Russia is overarmed. And he continues by saying, Russia is an overarmed and aggressive state operating at our borders. So, Macron wants to make Europeans and the entire world understand that they are facing at their borders an overarmed and aggressive state operating at their borders, which means that all of Europe and the entire world must become aware of the imminent danger threatening Europe. And when faced with the danger, what do? We seek to eliminate the danger completely. Hence the idea of continuing the fight against Russia. This is a first aspect to demonstrate that Macron does not agree at all with What Trump thinks and what Trump says, since in the Oval Office, what triggered the rest of the commotion of the interaction is when Donald Trump told Zelensky that no, you have no cards in hand. We have the cards in hand. So you have no chance. You must accept a ceasefire. And for the ceasefire, Zelensky does not agree. He wants a peace agreement. Since Zelensky said no, when you sign a ceasefire with Vladimir Putin, you sign a ceasefire with Putin, he will never respect it. Zelensky even went as far as giving the example of the ceasefire agreement that was supposedly signed in 2019. He gave many examples, but Trump didn't want to hear any of it. Trump clearly told him anyway, he said, but it is easier to obtain a ceasefire than to obtain a peace agreement. We have the ceasefire in front of us. Let's accept it first. Let's take the ceasefire. Stop the deaths. Too many victims. Let's take the ceasefire, and then we'll negotiate for the peace agreement. So, the ceasefire is a step before moving to the peace agreement. And almost everywhere in countries that are in conflict, it's always like that. But that's what Zelensky didn't want. And that's also what France and Europe do not want. They want a definitive agreement. Peace agreement, that's all. Peace agreement, it's signed. They send their military to monitor the peace agreement in Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin is fundamentally opposed to that. So, Emmanuel Macron continues. He says Russia is committing terrorist acts, large-scale disinformation campaigns in Europe and in France. The stakes are high. Our security is at risk. Here is the statement from Emmanuel Macron, the French president addressing Europe, addressing the world, and responding to Donald Trump. So, the fact that Donald Trump told Zelensky that Zelensky, you are playing with World War III, hurts Macron. Very angry, upset, Macron says, if someone is leading a third world war, if someone is leading a third world war. It is, of course, Putin, the one who launched the aggression 3 years ago. So, in his words already, we feel that we are in the Third World War. And so we must not let Russia win. Since Donald Trump told Zelensky, you are playing with the Third War worldwide. So that means you want to trigger the Third World War. So, Macron says, if someone is leading, it means it's already underway. So, Macron doesn't stop there. It is next Thursday. The European Union will hold a meeting to discuss the reaction and the creation, to discuss the creation of a European defense architecture. We will talk about funding of several hundred billion euros, potentially up to 70 billion. Yes. He wakes up. I said 70 billion, 700 billion. He wakes up. Macron wakes up. He wants all of Europe to wake up. And he is therefore ready to sacrifice the entire French economy to ensure that Russia is rendered harmless, to retaliate, to show America that from now on, Europe is self-sufficient. Europe can obviously manage its own security. He continued. Emmanuel Macron criticized Donald Trump's remarks, which suggested that Ukraine is playing with World War III. Yes, he says that such accusations would be more appropriate if they were directed at the Kremlin's leader. He says this. There is an important point that should not be forgotten. If someone is playing with World War III, that person is called Putin. He is the one who launched the war of conquest 3 years ago. So, French President Emmanuel Macron, he is determined. He is truly committed. And look at the tone with which he speaks. Dear ladies and gentlemen, here is the headline news. We will see what follows, what the reactions of others will be, how the Kremlin will react, how Donald Trump will react, how Europe will also react, and how Africa will also react. That's it. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for sharing this video conference as much as possible. Share it in all possible groups. Don't forget to click on subscribe. Please subscribe. There you go. Subscribe. And invite your friends to subscribe. So, I officially inform you that we now have our TikTok account. There you go. You can scroll through the page. You will find the link. So, for all those who were looking for me on TikTok, I wasn't on TikTok. Now I am on TikTok. Since it's the new trend, many are much more on TikTok than on... There you go. So, thank you to each and every one of you. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.